Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me express my deep appreciation for the nice invitation that I received from the Sri Lankan organizer and my good friend, the president of ICA, and a number of you. I came here all along from Brazil, just passing by Italy to change my suitcase. And I take this opportunity to thank the Brazilian delegation here for the wonderful Congress and very successful Congress we had in Salvador in the state of Bahia, Brazil. I believe that talking today about our business, and in particular in those areas that include a cooperation between CIBJO and ICA, is not easy because we talk about something that brings together a number of points of interest, but at the same time is easy because when we deal with people that are not only clever but with a vision, and overall they are friends, everything becomes very, very easy. So it will be a great pleasure, Benjamin, Ruben, and all the other members of the boards working with you together, and look forward and taking care of the interests of our industry. Let me thank the Sri Lankan people, because I came here after so many years and I found something changed in better, and I am very happy. I was here nearly 20 years ago for a long while, and a number of new laws at that time. Nofel Jabir was president, Tom Elawala was here, and many other friends. And I am very happy that through to my very little contribution, a number of thousand jobs were born at that time. So I can see the Sri Lankan industry growing dramatically. This is a particular moment because our organizations, as I was saying before, are so close that sometimes we need a Congress like this that I can see since yesterday, very successful, and again, congratulations for that, Benjamin, that we have to feel ourselves that we all belong to the same family. Sometimes we believe that so big distance bring us to other areas or other kind of interest of other continents. But ladies and gentlemen, whatever is and wherever it is, the globalization has brought us to something that is not only global, but the world is so small that even though we are a big industry, from my side, as I understand and share with many other friends, we are much closer than what we think. So this is a very good start. The theme of my address today, as it is so often, is corporate social responsibility. And this is a very broad area in which a common approach and effort by ICA and CIBJO is critical. The stakes are very high, and whether they realize it or not, the members of our industry require that we lead the way. About 2 months ago, CIBJO was invited to attend a workshop in London organized by an organization called RESP, Responsible Ecosystems Sourcing Platform. Like CIBJO, it is a Swiss-based non-profit organization. Its membership is made up of companies from cosmetics, fashion, jewelry, as well governments, intergovernmental agencies, research institutions, civil society organizations. And its mission is to create positive environmental, social, and economic impacts by sustainable use of biodiversity and natural resources. RESP is a relatively new organization, having been established in 2013, but already it has attached the attention of some pretty powerful players. To illustrate, the meeting in London took place at the headquarters of Burberry Company. Because RESP is new, it has decided to focus at this stage on just 4 areas, and for each, it has set up a working group. These are reptile skins, wool fibers, natural ingredients in cosmetics and fragrance industries, and colored gemstones. We were talking yesterday about this meeting, Benjamin. CIBJO received its invitation obviously because it is association with colored gemstones industry, but I'm sure that because I have the pleasure and the honor to have in my board both the president of ICA and the president of AGTA and the new responsible officer liaison between ICA and CIBJO, Mr. Andrew Cody from Australia, and many others people belonging to ICA, such Neelam Alawadin, president of CIBJO Calastone Commission, Ponsawat, and many others. If I start mention, I have to mention all the audience, more or less. So I will not give full report on the day proceeding because our time is short. By the way, I am not the one who went late, even though last night we had a wonderful night. Thank you for that. The first was just a photo. This what's happening there, that was broadcast on the main screen by the organizers of the workshop to illustrate the potential damage to the ecosystem posed by the luxury products industries. It was an aerial photo, very similar to the one I have on the screen right now, although theirs was taken in Mozambique, in a ruby mining area, while this is one from artisanal sapphire mining field in Madagascar. Now, I think we would all agree that this is not an attractive sight. But I would like to put this incident into context. In the room at the RESP were representative of 3 other luxury product sectors, all of which use chemical processes in their systems of production. From that perspective, colored gemstones mining is relatively innocuous. Its environmental footprint may be messy, but its potential for long-term damage to the environment is relatively slight. However, that was never explained. On the contrary, the picture they used to illustrate the danger of the ecosystem was of the very sector that almost certainly posed the least danger. It was indicative of how, though, a battle we face in the public arena and how important it is that we are seen as being responsive to ethical challenges. The people think totally differently. And this is why, from time to time in the past, we have neglected to be part of those processes because they talk about us without knowing us. They talking about us with no knowledge. They talking about us without no experience of what our business is, we're talking about us simply because they want to talk about us. But when you talk about somebody, it's better that you know his background, that you know what this somebody is doing, that you know who he is, that you know what he does, and so on. So you have at least a number of information, and you have the capacity to talk, and then that somebody may replicate. But talk in absence is very wrong, from one side and from the other side. The one, because they talk in absence, and the other one, because they are absent. So I believe that we have to be present physically in order to let them know what we are, who we are, what we represent, and what kind of activity, and how many jobs, and what kind of livelihood we give to the people. They do not know. The second incident, I would like to tell you from about what's happened in this RESP workshop, was actually a comment made by several times by a representative of one of the major leather tanning companies, several times during the various panel discussion, as the delegates discussed, like traceability and supply chain integrity, he stood up and asked, "Do you bosses know what are you talking about?" You see, these people talk to us such as we don't know what we're talking about. I mean, considering how respectable, how transparent, how honest is industry, I would say that this is quite an offense. But obviously, reacting at these kind of issues, which in this kind of environment are very provocative, is not the case. He was referring to the implementation of these systems, which it was clear from the discussion was expected to be carried out and paid for mainly by the companies in the midstream of the value chain. At some point, one of the panelists admitted that if any progress was going to be made, there would need to be a renewed discussion in the industry about the distribution of profit. For us, the gemstones and jewelry business, it was a very familiar dilemma. In creating structured CSR system in our industry, we have had to develop tools and systems of dealing with whatever problem may arise. The Kimberley Process Certification Scheme in the diamond business is an example of a generally successful effort which dramatically reduced the incidence of conflict diamonds in the pipeline and almost certainly played a role in ending at least 3 civil wars in Africa. How? Taking away the reason of the war, meaning money. It is a system that dramatically changed the way to work and think in the industry. But it was mainly paid for by government. However, there are other structures that government is not prepared to bankroll, including most systems designed to defend the integrity of the supply chain. These typically are voluntary. In order to be accredited, companies may be required to submit a third-party monitoring and external audits. It can be an expensive process. In CIPJO, we support all such efforts in principle, but with one important condition. No such system create an unfair business advantage, especially if it is restrictively expensive to implement. What unfair systems sometimes do is imply that all those who are financially or logistically unable to adopt them are not responsible corporate citizens, at least in comparison to who do have the means to implement them. But we cannot consider that those systems that defend the chain of distribution should be inclusive and obviously not restrictive. We have to consider that both ICA and CIBJO, even though ICA represent individual members and CIBJO represent organizations all over the world, but especially in the color stones, even though there are corporations which are very rich with big turnover, but the majority of us belong to the rank and file. So we have to consider that if a big corporation can put in place areas or department or office with a number of lawyers, very expensive, as the lawyers usually are, with corporate social responsibility people in charge, and they can spend and supply a lot of money in order to be seen as responsible. What does it mean? We are not corporate or responsible citizen. Instead, somebody else, I take the big car corporation or those examples that we have had, but afterwards I will show you a slide with a very important Nobel Prize, and I would like to comment afterwards what it has been his definition. But certainly, we operate together transparently, honestly, because we know each other, we trust each other, and our reputation is crystal clear. Because those who has a drop of ink, whatever color is, even white on white, or black on black, or blue on blue, they are out of business in a second, as happened a number of times, such as, example, in the Kimberley process, in the diamond business, such as in our business, such as in the gold business, and so on. The midstream of our chain of distribution is predominantly made up of small and medium-sized enterprises. Indeed, in the color gemstone sector, with the notable exception of fewer than a handful of companies, both the upstream and the midsection of the pipeline is comprised entirely of small and medium-sized enterprises. The greater jewelry business, including the colors gemstones sector, is testament to the fact that a community of small companies can create an industry that generates close to $170 billion per annum. Sometimes we don't know what we do, in the sense that we are not so conscious that how much we create, how many people we support, how many families we maintain, how many children do to what we do are going to school, have education, how many houses could be bought, how many cars. So if you think for a moment, what kind of contribution we give to the global economy, maybe we start thinking a little bit different by us. That is us. It's because us. It's because our capacity to establish a company and to take the risk responsibly, ethically, based on our reputation, based on our sense of businesses and international relations, in order to give all those that belong to our industry the possibility to live honorably, to live freely, to live ethically, to live with education, to live with honesty. You don't go to the supermarket to buy, give me 3 kilos of honesty. How do you like, with slice or like this? Honesty is honesty. You cannot buy, you have or you don't. In this industry, 99.9% 0.99, meaning 100%, is basically very honest. Otherwise, we all were not here, or part of us were not in Brazil, or part of us would be not in Hong Kong, in Las Vegas, wherever. So, from our experience, one of the things that small and medium-sized enterprises do best is generate more small and medium enterprises. The sons and daughters and family-owned companies frequently set up their own companies where they can express themselves and provide independent livings for their individual families, and it is inherently sustainable business structure. But we cannot take the existence of our small and medium-sized enterprises for granted. In the developed markets and production centers, they are sectors coming under increasing pressure, where a range of factors that disadvantage them have combined, making it increasingly difficult to stay in business. At the beginning of this year, after years of planning and preparation, and I want to take this opportunity to thank publicly Mr. Andrew Cody. Andrew, could please stand up 1 second? Because also Andrew from time to time have a good idea, not often, but from time to time. But one day he came to me and said, Gaetano, you know, I have this idea, it's called JETS, and this is, let's say, a draft project, what do you think? So even though the professor is not in the room, right? Where is the professor? Oh, there, I didn't see you there. But even though I am not a professor, I said, this idea, I like it. So let's go to develop. And what I did, I called professors that are in the NGO friends, and we start moving on with him. And in fact, as I said, at the beginning of this year, after years of planning and preparation, we announced that the jewelry industry, first web-based corporate social responsibility compliance system, would soon be launched. It was developed by CIBJO, and obviously Andrew has been always with us, together with an Australian-based foundation, Branded Trust Assurance System, which also be responsible for its management. The CODI CIBJO Branded Trust System is geared to provide practical and economic solutions to all companies in the industry seeking to achieve and manage social compliance, develop risk management policies, and do social reporting. Managed online, the system provides jewelry companies with simple, effective tools that are easy to operate, integrate with the existing system, and bring leading business into compliance with the major international rule structures. It includes a set of policies, measures, full implementation, support, education, and reporting. Branded Trust also provides a certification to business that have achieved successful implementation, and third-party auditing can be added if a company so wish. Before inviting you to, when this will be fully launched, to use the system, I would like to recognize in the room James Riley. James, where are you? CEO of GEMA, the Gemological Association of Great Britain, and also the Gemological Association of Australia. Where are you? Gemological Association of Australia representative, stand up so I can see you, right. Because with these friends, we start since long time ago to check on the field where the problems could be identified in order to give to those rank and file that they do not have enough money to finance for many $10,000 or part of their annual income corporate social responsibility program with certification, with accreditation, with monitoring, and so on. So what we start thinking, again, starting from the basic idea that Andrew brought to our attention with his friends, we said, well, we cannot ask our people to pay many $10,000 to follow this program. We need to do something different that is going to cost a few $100s in order that everybody may implement activity. For this reason, politically, we start moving and looking around. I myself was one of the founder member, and honestly, the project was mine. And I refer to RJC, that obviously is a great example, but up to now, as designed originally, was not specifically created for small enterprises. So, but because we have so close relations, I believe that our relation in terms of mutual recognition will come quite soon, in order that we may have those systems that are for the one and the other. Because, you know, the small and medium enterprises, they do not have a specific sector, they do not have a specific branch, they do not have a specific department towards CSR. In our condition is the owner or his son or his daughter or his wife that has to take care about this. So we have to consider also what kind of time. So I invite all ICA members to investigate using the system. It was created specifically for companies just like those in our sector. So what do we reasonably need to do in order to be responsible corporate citizens? Is in now famous article published in the New York Times magazine in September 1970, the Nobel Prize winning economist Milton Friedman presented the doctrine for what today would be referred to as corporate social responsibility. There is one and only one social responsibility of business, Mr. Friedman wrote, to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase in its profit so long as it stays within the rules of the game. The rules of the game, which is to say engaged in open and free competition without deception or fraud. During the years that followed, it was a sentence for which Mr. Friedman was much criticized, in part because many who cited it selected to quote only the first section, which suggests that all is permissible in the interest of corporate profit. I repeat, many put attention only to this part, meaning that all is permissible in the interest of corporate profit. But Mr. Friedman did refer to the rules of the game, which suggests that he accepted a code of conduct to be followed, although he limited that to open and free competition without deception or fraud. Let me stress, that is not automatic conflict between profit and social responsibility. On the contrary, in order to be an effective social force, a business needs to exist. In other words, it must be profitable. But again, I would like to go back to what the majority of the people, taking that sentence or part of it, or taking deliberately part of it, they said, well, everything is permissible. So because it's permissible, first of all, we consider the corporate profit, and then we use as a marketing tool what corporate social responsibility issues, what corporate social responsibility principles they are for. So we can use children because Nike in Pakistan, we can use women because slavery somewhere else, we can use this and that. It's not like this. It's not like this at all. It's not like this. Because what we do, and we can teach to the big corporation, what we do in our enterprises, we do simply with the family system. Family system, that means education, which means respect, which means solidarity, which means this kind of simple, elementary principles. Indeed, it could be argued that a socially responsible approach makes good business sense. In the current climate, companies who follow it are more likely to attract client sympathy and thus increase their revenue potential. But what if a socially responsible approach does not reinforce profit? Does that mean that it should be set aside? Of course not. Socially responsible is a way of life. It's like you go on the road, and when you smoke, you take your cigarette for those you smoke and put in the ashtray. You don't leave on the ground. Just to give you a stupid example. It should never be considered a strategic alternative, but a business may select to increase business revenue or to provide itself with a competitive advantage. The industry-wide perception of corporate social responsibility that developed as a result of conflict diamond experience predominantly involved the creation of defensive systems designed to ensure that jewelry and its components do not harm. As the Romans used to say, primum non nocere. Alongside the Kimberley process, other defensive measures were implemented to regulate against money laundering and to ensure that proper health, safety, labor, and environment standards are maintained. Environmental damage is rarely a concern that in the gem cutting and jewelry manufacturing sector, although when it comes to the mining of precious metal and processing this, is a real issue that must be addressed. But despite the fact that our environmental footprint is limited in recent years, CIPJO has expanded its range of activity related to the environment. Last year, we instituted a program related to carbon neutrality, using our organization as a role model for the industry. With this, the assistance of an independent and outside advisor, our carbon footprint was measured both in 2013 and 2014, and we purchased offsetting carbon credits and thereby achieving carbon neutrality, which was officially announced during the last Congress in Brazil. Furthermore, our most recent Congress that took place at the beginning of this month was first such event ever in the jewelry industry to be fully carbon neutral. This is not simply a public relations exercise. What we have seen over the past several months is more and more jewelry and gemstones companies impressed by our example, taking steps themselves to become carbon neutral. We would be delighted to work, as we will, with ICA and this member of this area. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to show, we don't need to be seen, we don't need to do this or that NGOs or risk sometimes, somebody come, well, we have a risk management or risk of that. Which risk? Which management? What are we talking about? We're talking about the example that we do every day, exercising the business as we do. That's what we're talking about. And we don't need to make whatever, because we do every day with our citizenship, corporate citizenship, with our responsibility, with our carbon footprint, and so on. So around 2004, and I go nearly to the conclusion, we began discussing with Cibgio an expanded vision of CSR by which the jewelry industry would seek not only to not impact negatively on society and the environment, but also to serve as a positive economic and social force, especially in the countries in which we are active. It was new understanding which inspired us to initiate contact with the United Nations, eventually leading to Cibgio's becoming the jewelry industry's first and only member of the UN Economic and Social Council, or ECOSOC, in 2006. At 2007 Cibgio Congress in South Africa, our General Assembly ratified a statement that has since become known as the Cape Town Declaration, that it knows that the role of the world jewelry industry in promoting corporate social responsibility and recognize that the jewelry industry as a member of the international business community shares a responsibility toward the greater society in seeking practical solutions toward the education of extreme poverty and hunger, as well to developing a global partnership for development. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at that time, and a number of you were there, we state that the jewelry industry is a peace asset. What the jewelry industry has to do with peace? Why is a peace asset? Why is an asset? Because we, in certain area of the world, we were able, we all, I don't make any difference between one organization or another because we all belong to this industry. We all put in place systems, and with our capacity to risk, and to risk an enterprises, to risk a company, and to put in risk our name, reputation, and money, we were able to bring jobs, to bring schools, to bring a better quality of life in order that in that specific areas, instead to go to make war or to go to make other stuff, the people is going to do honest business. And this is why the Secretary General himself proposed to the General Assembly that the jewelry industry means all of you. We are all together a peace asset. I would like to outline several bases, guidelines for doctrine for CSR in the jewelry industry. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, it is essential to qualify exactly to whom we are responsible. And I would define three main groups. One, our business community, which include all the executives and employees along the entire length of the chain of distribution, or as they say, from the mine through the jewelry retailer. Two, our consumers who buy jewelry for its beauty, heritage, and its ability to express human emotion, and who rely upon us to protect its value and reputation. Three, our stakeholders, who include the millions of individuals living in the countries and regions around the world in which we are active, and for whom we represent a resource for sustainable economic and social development. To be responsible corporate citizen in the modern jewelry business, we have to follow three basic rules of practice, two of which I have already spoke about at length. One, to defend the industry from the various challenges that could threaten our reputation and integrity. Two, to function as a positive influence, serving as a means for sustainable economic and social development in the communities and countries in which we are active. And three, to be fully transparent in the way we operate our business and about what as well. Now, if you consider this is exactly what we do every day. And let me go now quite to the conclusion. It is On the critical subject of transparency that I will conclude this presentation, disclosure lies at the heart of our transparency requirement. And from the consumer perspective, our responsibility is clear. We have to inform them exactly what we are selling, exactly. Treated and synthetic gemstones, for example, are not inherently immoral, nor are they illegal, as long as the consumer understands exactly what they are. ICA and CIBJO, with the very important contribution of AGTA, have cooperated in implementing the treatment codes, which are meant to be used by the trade to accurately report what treatment colored gemstones have been subjected to, and consumers, it should be emphasized, need to be informed as well, but with more comprehensive details. But in order to be transparent, in other words, to be able to disclose clearly, one needs to be able to describe the product in a language that is understood throughout the trade. It was to advance this required that CIBJO developed its blue books that you all know, which are today the most universally recognized and accepted set of jewelry and gemstone standards in the world. Several of men and women who devote a great deal of time and effort to preparing and updating the blue books are with us in Sri Lanka today, and will be addressing or already have to the Congress. They include Neelam, President of CIBJO Colorstone Commission, Ken Scarrett, President of Pearl Commission, Ponsawat, Vice President of both CIBJO Gemological and Coral Commission, and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, subject that we are discussed at length during our CIBJO Congress in Brazil include the ethics and integrity of grading and grading report, in particular the use by labs of commercial terms such as pigeon bloods that Mr. Dr. Peretti was addressing to me in an email that we discussed. Thank you very much for bringing to our attention. And royal blue and cornflower blue. These are issues that we need to address and reach consensus on. I would like to conclude before thanking you to recognize the important role that GIA, Tom Moses, where is Tom? Oh, Tom. With these alerts that you brought to the attention of all the industry a real serious issues that obviously we are, all of us, ready to discuss, because this is something that is threatening our industry very much. And we cannot allow these people even to stay with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude, and sorry if I was over time a little bit. Thank you very much for your attention. And let me again thank the organizer of this Congress, the Sri Lankan people, the ICA people, in the name of its president and the board, for your great attention, and thank you very much for having been so kind to invite me to your event. Thanks.